Hello! In this Unity tutorial, I wanted to cover the concept of a prefab. So a prefab inside of Unity is a type of reusable asset. Any object inside of Unity can be created as a prefab. Prefabs are really nice because any instance that you create of the prefab is going to share the properties of the prefab. What this means is, imagine we're developing a first-person shooter type game, and we need bullets for our gun. Well, a typical magazine has 30 bullets inside of it. We would not want to create 30 separate game objects to use. That would become unimaginable complexity very quickly. Instead, it would be nice if we had a way just to have one bullet that we reused over and over again. And if we wanted to make a change to that one bullet, the change would propagate to any future or existing instances of that bullet. Alright, I think the best way to understand it though is just to take a look at one. So what we're going to do is, I am in a blank 3D project. If you need help on setting up your Unity to either a 2D or a 3D project, I would encourage you to take a look at the project setup video on this channel. But we're going to go ahead and create a cube. So again, go to Game Object at the very top left-hand corner, select 3D and Cube. Perfect. Alright, so as the cube stands right now, it is simply a game object in the scene, and it's in our hierarchy as shown. To make it a prefab, go ahead and select it in the hierarchy, click, hold, and drag with the left mouse button anywhere into the assets or any of the subfolders in the assets window down below. If you successfully created the prefab, you'll see that the text here turns blue, and that's going to tell you that this object is a prefab. You'll also be able to see a preview of it down here. And if you select on it, you'll be able to see that the name of it is actually .prefab. Now, if we select on the prefab here, this is the one that we're going to want to edit. We don't want to edit this one. The reason why is because, yes, although we created the prefab from this is an instance of the prefab. So any changes that we make to this one, for example, if I were to set the scale to 4, 4, 4, for example, make it a little bit bigger. If I select on this one here and open up the prefab, you'll notice that the scale values are not 4 by 4 by 4. The reason is we're editing a particular instance of the prefab. Now let me go ahead and Control-Z that, and let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to move this cube just a little bit off to the left, and let's go ahead and click, hold, drag another cube into the hierarchy. So now we have 2 cubes, and we'll even bring in one more, just so we have 3. Okay, now what we're going to do is select on the cube down here in the Assets folder, and then we're going to go ahead and change one of the values. So let's change this to 3 by 3 by 3. Well, these two were a little bit too close to each other. Let me move them separately. But you'll notice that all of them scaled at once. And that's the beauty of the prefab, is when we make a change to the prefab, it's going to be reflected in all of the assets. Now, is that true for other properties? So for example, if we were to take this and select the rotation, if we rotate it, you'll notice that the rotation is not updating. What happens if we change the position? Nothing's actually happening. The scale in this case is the only one that's truly going to be modified by that. If we take a look here at the rotation, position, we can see that those were not modified for these cubes, but the scale was set to 3 on all of them. Similarly, we can edit the other properties here. So if we were to turn off the mesh render, you'll notice that all of them are going to disappear. They will all come back as well. We can disable all of their colliders by undoing that. And let's actually create a material really quickly. So we'll create, by right-clicking in the Assets folder, a new material. And let's call this Red, because we're going to select on it. And don't worry too much if you don't know much about materials. Please take a look at the materials and textures video on this channel. But we're just going to use this material to basically paint the color red onto one of these cubes. So with that material selected, go ahead and select the white color in the inspector and just drag it to red. Perfect. Okay, go ahead and now select on your cube, and we're just going to scroll down and then go ahead and drag the red onto that. And you'll notice now that all of them are going to turn red. What happens though if we were to create another material? So right click, create material, and let's do a green material. So we'll make this color just like we did the previous one, a nice green color. And then let's go ahead and, if we were to change the color of the prefab itself, so for example, if we were to change this element here, you'll notice that all of them are going to change to that green. We can change them all back to red. What happens if I select on this one though in particular and I drag this one right there? So not all of them changed, which is a very important concept because yes, we are using a prefab which allows us to instantiate reusable assets, but once they're instantiated, they are their own individual assets. So we can manipulate the properties on them. So now we have the red, green, and red prefabs. Because every time we create a cube, just by adding another one into the scene as we just did here, this one kind of got added up here. We'll talk about why that just happened in a second. You'll notice that it's going to get all of the properties of the prefab defined here, rather than the ones defined by each individual asset. Now remember, we did change the position and rotation of this one, because I wanted to see if we could change these ones down here. Because they're already instances, those positions and rotations are not going to be set up. But now when we created this new one, it got all of these values. So every time we create a new one now, it's also going to appear there. And then, of course, if we try to change these values, that's not going to change those prefabs respectively. All right. So that is it for this video on prefabs. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or to your instructor directly for more help. Thank you very much.